You're listening to the Valley Current.
So how is your mother doing? I assume you're still in Florida.
Right. To me, she's like, she said recently that she's been feeling better. You know, I don't know. Every day is a new story. Every day she complains about a lot of things. I think it's a mistake to stay in bed for more than 6, 7, or 8 hours, or even more than just your natural sleep. I think it's a mistake to watch TV in bed. I think it's a mistake to have a TV in a bedroom, which I think most Americans do. I think a bedroom should basically be for sleeping. I don't think a bedroom should be for eating. I don't think a bedroom should be for TV. But I think most Americans eat in bed, most Americans watch TV in bed, and most Americans treat a bedroom like, hey, you know, it's an all-purpose room. And maybe I'm sort of old school, but I think a bedroom is the minute you hit the bed, you should mainly go to sleep right away. And I know, you know, different partners have different outcomes. You know, if you've been married a few times, you sort of notice the difference between different women have different styles in bed, and it's kind of amazing just to mentally compare it. But when I get to bed, I just want to go out like a light, you know, and hopefully wake up refreshed, which I do think as you get older, it gets harder and harder to do because you wake up in the middle of the night just to go to the bathroom because your bladder is changing as a male, or your prostate is, or both. I'm sure you've studied or thought about this. I'm sure it's something that you
I solved the problem because I don't get up anymore.
Well, how do you pull that off? You don't drink anything after 6 p.m.?
No, I discovered a contraption that's actually made in China that allows me to pee while supine in bed.
Okay, well, that sounds like a good solution, but don't you have to wake up to still pee?
Well, of course.
Right.
But, it means I don't have to stand.
Right.
I don't have to walk.
Okay.
And
but it's not a catheter. It's more a catch basin.
I bought it as I happened to accidentally see it on Amazon.
Right.
And I'll send you the contact if you want it. But it's terrific because standing up once or twice from bed is very bad on your heart.
Oh, is that
very
right?
Bad.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're saying
when you go even from a sitting position to a standing position, there are lots of adjustments that occur in your circulatory system.
Right.
And that's governed by your heart.
I always thought those were good adjustments. I always thought those were
they're good in order to allow you to stand up. Of course, that's good. But to do that after lying supine in bed for several hours and then springing to your feet without sitting on the edge of the bed for at least a minute or two is not good at all.
Well, they don't teach that in grade school, I'll tell you that, or high school or college.
Well, there are a lot of things they didn't teach. And one of the things that I discovered that was not known until about 10 years ago when I had to purchase a CPAP machine. You know what they are?
Yeah.
To correct, in my case, it was not only snoring, but also a reduction in blood oxygen level.
Okay.
Which was discovered by my wife when I stopped breathing for almost a minute.
Oh, you had deep sleep apnea then, right?
Apparently.
Right.
And snoring was thought, of course, until about 10 or 15 years ago, to be just an amusing thing. And it was a subject of a lot of humor.
Right.
But it was then discovered, and most physicians took a long time to understand it. But the sleep biologist discovered that not only did your blood oxygen level depress during snoring, but there was, and still it has not been explained, significant effects on cardiac output.
Right.
And that had a link to urinating. There was a link, it's still not clearly understood, but the physiological changes that occurred increased the likelihood that you would awake at night to urinate. And as soon as I got that CPAP machine, my need to urinate at night dropped down to one or occasionally two events at night.
Okay. And then you found a device. Then you found a device.
Then I found this device, which is a terrific. It's a kind of open cylinder that fits around your penis, not a long tube. It goes down to a 2-liter vessel. It's all plastic.
Right.
It sits on the floor.
Right.
And I just turn on my right side and do what's necessary to fit. And it's very easy, of course. It's just a big open cylinder.
Right.
Like a drinking glass, only shaped properly.
Right.
And it's plastic. And you pee that way. And then I wipe myself with a Kleenex.
Right.
And I never get out of bed.
But do you notice, like, I would think this is just where my head goes. Is it like a certain time? Like, can you imagine if they put some electronics in this and made it expensive? It would say what time and how much was collected. So you could actually, I've heard people get into my age bracket and say, just stop drinking water or anything by 6 p.m. If you're going to bed at 10 p.m., don't drink anything, use the bathroom before you go to bed, but don't drink anything. Don't drink a glass of water at 9:55 p.m. before you go to bed. That's a mistake. You're setting yourself up. But you don't follow any of those practices because you made it convenient.
Not seriously, no, I don't.
But there are definite doctors and others who have said to me, the solution is just don't even eat after 6 p.m.
It's not a full solution because right. if you're complying with those suggestions and you're still peeing once or twice at night, then it's not working. Right. Even though you're not drinking water.
Right.
It's not something that can be controlled by not ingesting water for several hours before sleep. Your kidneys are functioning constantly and producing urine, and the mechanism that alerts you to pee is not working as efficiently in old age as it did when you were youthful.
Right. I think those doctors who handle prostate like to say, sooner or later, you're going to see me. Like sooner or later, the male prostate.
For a prostate problem, possibly, but if you do as I have been doing, and I did do a sleep test overnight, fully engaged at the Stanford Sleep Clinic about 15 years ago, I guess.
Right.
And that's where it was discovered that I had, what do you call it?
Sleep apnea?
Sleep apnea, yeah.
Right. Right. I think that whenever you look at people like, I think, for example, Donald Trump probably wasn't getting super high quality sleep for most of his 4 years in office. And I think he probably does have various sleep disorders. Who knows what they all are? And it could include sleep apnea. My brother had sleep apnea and would use that machine, which I think you have to put some water in it to kind of vaporize the.
Well, not necessarily. I did for a while use the humidifier attachment, but I found that it was not necessary for me. It might be for other people. But
right. It's just blowing air.
All it is a more serious hair dryer. without the heat. Without the heat, it's just a blower.
It's a blower, and you could argue it's heading down the direction of ventilation, what might be called a ventilator that people talk about. It's heading sort of.
In fact, that was they were used during the height of the coronavirus epidemic in some hospitals who ran out of ventilator equipment.
Right, because you could argue that, hey, we've made millions of these machines. There's a manufacturer, I want to say ResMed is one of them. There's a bunch of manufacturers.
There are many. It was discovered by some engineers in Australia, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the major companies is still headquartered in Australia.
So when you look at this innovation that you've discovered, which allows you to stay in bed, do you attribute some of your health span to your management of your sleep in this style, or do you say, nah, that's just minor footnote?
I don't have any control for that experiment, so
Yeah.
I can't say anything about it.
Right, but you believe that getting up in the middle of the night is
Yes.
a bad thing, right, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, well,
'cause you're
that has been looked at.
right?
I'm convinced that I'm much better off staying in bed and not getting out of bed. And it's not only that part. The most important part is the ease and comfort
Right.
of doing it that way.
Right.
Otherwise, you get fully awake, you're standing up. That's not fun.
Right. So why?
And the room is usually colder at night.
Right. So why do the hospitals use catheters? Why don't they use this Chinese device? Why do they use something so painful or sophisticated as a catheter? I never understood that. That seems to be.
Well, it's easy to understand when you have an obstruction in the urinary tract.
Right, but if you have no obstruction,
Well, then you don't need a catheter.
right,
You don't have
if you look at most of the people that are like bedridden, one of the first things that happens if they're male, maybe even if they're a female, is all of a sudden the way urine is being handled is with a catheter and not with some other tool.
Well, I don't know why, because the device that I'm using, or a standard urinal,
Right,
hospital urinal,
right,
is more cumbersome.
right. But you could argue the bedroom has not really innovated that much beyond the bed. Like the bed, I guess there are water beds and beds that tilt up, but they don't really handle the add-on device that you have in any real fashion. They just assume you're going to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom. And I know a lot of people fall, particularly as they get older.
That's another serious risk. Yes.
Right, right. Like you could argue that this Chinese device, if it became prevalent, might save a number of deaths that just happen from falls in the middle of the night with no nightlight on, or slippery falls or whatever. And maybe China in many ways has innovated something that Americans need to know more about. Just like I say, the Japanese have innovated these bidet toilets that use water in lieu of paper. And I have to tell you, I think the toilet paper industry would go bonkers if people started to go the Japanese way, because the immense amount of toilet paper that, like, the very first thing people worry about in a pandemic is not even their health, whether they can get toilet paper. Like, that's the biggest thing around. You'd say, God,
well, that's because they never heard of Kleenex.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying. They never heard of using a bidet. Like, you can now buy these Chinese add-on bidets that are very simple. They're not as sophisticated as the Japanese. The Japanese have it down to where the toilets could be like $5,000-$10,000.
I've used them in Japan.
Right. It's amazing.
But the other thing that we used to use was the Sears Roebuck catalog.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.